Welcome to the Get Your Act Together podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds. Today is 100 episodes of this podcast. There have been breaks and late episodes, hello in the last week. But today we make it to 100 episodes. And I thought about doing a retrospective of where we have been over those last 100 shows. But I got to tell you, I just couldn't get into it. If you have listened here for a while, even to all of the episodes, hi, Mom, you have heard lots about where we've been already. And I think right now I'm in such a place of looking forward that I can't wrap my head around looking back. I have actually been avoiding recording this podcast for days. It's been on my list and I have been just kind of bumping it. In fact, I made about 5 different appointments with doctors and haircuts today, in that way that you do when you start trying to avoid what you're supposed to be doing. And I realized it's because I didn't want to do a retrospective episode. I didn't want to say, oh, well, we started in May of 2020 when the pandemic was starting. Like, you guys have already heard all that. And I have just so much excitement about what's to come. And I have so much excitement about where we're going that I really don't want to, sit in the past. So we're not doing a retrospective episode for number 100. I'm breaking with tradition. I just want to settle in and really celebrate the fact that we made 100 episodes. Well, mostly because everyone tells me I suck at celebrating. Not like I don't like to go out to dinner with a glass of wine. That I'm very good at. I mean, by the time I hit 100,000 in my company, I was already working in my head on 200,000. I hit the milestone and it meant nothing. And I'm really, really crappy at trying to sit there and celebrate. So first, I want to just acknowledge that 100 episodes is a really big fucking deal. Some people try a podcast and then they make a handful of episodes and they're real excited about it and they tell all their friends and then they quit. I was just reading something the other day and it said less than 20% of the podcasts that have launched this year will even make it till next year. So here we are, 2.5 years later at episode 100. If you are a longtime listener, hi, Mom, you will know that with the episode in the middle of the summer, that it was just like chaos ensued around here. And we took like a 2-month break because sanity is really nice. It's really important. I'm not great at sanity, but it's really important. So there have been some breaks and we have just kind of kept going. It's pretty fucking cool. We've done this. Why am I still here? Why do I podcast at all? Why am I still doing this? And I got to say, it's really just because I like it. I do not make $1 billion from this. This is not an Amy Porterfield level podcast where I monetize it heavily and I'm getting a huge pipeline from it or all the things. To be fair, this is not making me $1 million at all, but I like it. I like doing it. This has been a ton of really hard work that I am super proud of. The whole idea took me out of my comfort zone of speaking into recording devices and broadcasting it to the world. I had such a phobia of talking into a tape recorder because of 4th grade French class when we had to, while everyone else was doing their final, everyone had to talk into a tape recorder. And this, we had to read this thing so they could listen to your pronunciation of French. And it traumatized me. And I didn't ever even want to record anything ever. Freaked me out. So when we decided to do this, and by we, I meant I agreed to this after a couple of glasses of wine when my husband said it was going to be a great idea. And I agreed to it and I was like, oh my God. And I've talked about this before. I thought I was going to throw up every single time. Now I can get on and record way easier. It took a lot of practice. 100 episodes gets you that kind of practice. Broadcasting that out to the world, the whole world could hear whatever stupid thing I said today. I gotta tell you, pretty terrifying. I mean, we had no idea what we were doing. None. I had no clients that had ever done a podcast or that I'd handled it at all. We had to do a ton of research and we just figured it out. Like it was a lot of like, okay, where do we publish this? What do we do? How does it all work? What do we, what are the systems involved? Because I had systems for this. Where are we going to do this? How do we post that? How do we get the player onto the website? Like all that stuff. I had no idea what we were doing, but we figured it out. Like it was fun. It was an adventure. It was terrifying, but it was an adventure. I love being able to share the things that I have learned through all of this trial and error, not just with the podcast, but with my business as well. Like over the years, I've been able to share all that with you guys. And I hope that somewhere along the line, I've saved you some time or some aggravation or some money, all of the hard work that I had to go through, the trial and error, that somehow it becomes useful to someone else through this podcast. I love nerding out with a guest over their operations. That is like maybe one of the nerdiest things I've ever said. When I get to like talk to my own people, that's super fun, right? You get to talk operations or talk systems or talk agency. And it's so fun because I work from home. I think a lot of you work from home, and my husband does not want to hear any more about SOPs or systems. He's kind of had enough of it. Gardening, he's had enough of too. Like, so I get really excited to talk to other people that are interested in the same things that I'm interested in. And that has been a big bonus to the agency series that we've been doing for these last couple of months. Like I thought it was going to be a couple people that I'd interview. I would just kind of learn about them a little bit, figure out how their agencies worked, and that would be it. And I don't know how many we've had so far at this point. And I have more people asking to be on the show. So that series is going to go basically until I run out of people to interview, which there's a lot of agencies out there. So I think we're going to have that for a while. And it's so fun. I did not expect it to be fun, I got to tell you. I thought it was going to be maybe a little dry and a little nerdy, but it's so fun talking to people that have the same interests as me. And like that nerding out. And then when somebody comes on and starts talking about software I didn't know about, come on. That is the best. Totally didn't expect that to be awesome, but it is. I also love that this podcast is free. It is free for you to listen to. You could just be starting out, I don't know, came out of corporate, started as a VA, whatever you're doing, and you can listen to this and not pay a dime. And I love that because when you're starting to do anything and you have no cash to spend on something, I love being able to put that kind of knowledge out into the world for someone who needs the information but doesn't have the cash. Like, I remember how it was when I started. I started my business on like 45 cents is how I remember it. And if I can help someone else grow their business without paying a bunch of money, yeah, that's awesome. Right? Like I like, just like I was saying about the trial and error, like being able to share that knowledge and help someone else's business, that's the best. I want to build other women's businesses with them. I want to give them any help I can in growing their business so that they can take care of themselves and take care of their families and do what they want with their lives instead of being stuck in some crappy job that they hate or some marriage they hate because, they don't have the cash or they can't afford to feed their kids or whatever the thing is. Like, I want to support women so they can take care of themselves. So the fact that this is free is it's a big deal for me. And I love it. I talk about all the major concepts of my business, of my coaching on here for free. If you go back and listen, you will hear me explain some things that, like, I think all the things, frankly, all the things I do in my business with clients, I talk through, I got to say, most, if not all of them. So if you are an enterprising person who wanted to listen through and learn how to do things and go out there and do them, it's all there for you to take. So I love that part. I love having guests, not just because I get to nerd out with them, but I also love that idea of helping them grow their businesses and giving them a stage to show off their talents. A lot of the guests that are on this podcast and it's their first time because I don't take no for an answer and because I pester them until they'll do it. Because I know that they're really good at what they do and they're scared to tell the world about it. And most of us I think most of us are just scared to market. We're scared to say, hi, I do this thing. I can help you, because we feel yucky and salesy. I have a lot of that from being on Wall Street. Like, you feel slimy selling instead of just saying like, hi, I'm really good at this. Do you want me to help you with that? Like, that's really all we're doing. So many people are scared to do podcasts, and friends of mine have been on this podcast, and I've basically just made them do it. I've just made them do it. Teresa Cleveland was on here. She's a very good friend of mine for a long time. We went through the OBM certification 1,000 years ago. After getting off this podcast, after I made her be on my podcast, she started her own podcast. She was like, this is so much fun. And maybe she never would have done it. Jenny Davis, this was her first podcast. Now she's been on it twice. We've done other things. Like, I love giving that stage to other women to be brave. And that has been an enormously cool thing about having this podcast. Finally, I just love being able to share the things that are happening in my business and like how we help people. Not that I'm sitting here with ads and selling things. I rarely actually do any of that on this podcast at all. Once in a while, I will say like, hey, we're opening up a round of Get Your Agency Together or something like that. But I really just like being able to talk like about what's happening, telling you guys what's going on, what are the new things that I'm working on right now. And I get so excited to share about it. Right now, I am working on this pilot program for systems that I am kind of constructing and putting through some paces to see how the program will work. If you're on my mailing list, you've heard about this already, but it's exciting to be able to talk about things without feeling like I have to be in Facebook ads. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not pushing and selling and selling and selling. I'm just like, hey, you guys, I'm totally working on this thing and I'm having a hard time, or this is so exciting, or I'm presenting to a really cool mastermind all about agency and how they can grow an agency. That's super cool. Like, I just want to tell everyone about it because I'm really like excited about it. I'm putting together right now some ideas for workshops next year. I'm working on the pilot program right now for the rest of the year. And then, the holidays are always a blur. And then January comes and it's cold and none of us want to go outside. So that's when I'm starting to like put all these ideas together. And I love being able to talk about that, like being able to just share what's happening at Reynolds OBM without being slimy and yucky about sales. So I guess all of this is to say, thank you for listening to the Get Your Act Together podcast. If this is your first episode or your 100th episode, thank you for listening. I really obviously wouldn't be here. Well, I mean, I guess I could talk to myself all the time, but it's a lot of work to do and have no one listen. So thank you. And I hope that you can take away something that is useful for you and your business. I hope that there has been a little nugget along the way that made listening to this all worth it, even if it's just, I'm not alone. Kelly's business is sometimes chaotic too. Whatever it is, I hope that something here along the line has been useful to you. And I am super excited to see where we are in another 100 episodes. And I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you have an agency or want to create one, come join my Facebook community, Get Your Agency Together, where we talk all the things growing and scaling your agency. For show notes and more info on all the things, head over to reynoldsobm.com.